Welcome to Wrasslin Raw! Thank you for joining us. This is Wrasslin Raw, and you are here with Joe Gimateo.
I'd like to clear the air here and let the people know that the rumors of me breaking up the Spice Girls is not true.
And I am Ryan Orico. Jason will not be joining us this week or next. He's currently deep behind enemy lines on a clandestine mission for Wrasslin Raw, but rest assured he will grace this podcast once again in a few weeks when he's all wrapped up there.
Yeah, he's busy invading WCW right now, so he'll be back soon.
Possibly going to drop a bomb on them or shoot them with a rocket. We don't know.
Yeah, a kaboom of the week, if you will.
Yes, if you will. But first,
you've got mail.
Yeah, how about that?
From long-time listener and someone whose question we've used in the past, user Chris Uncle Ahmed asks us, now that Wrasslin Raw has reached the halfway point of 98, what would you consider the best Raw of the first 6 months to this point? He picked the March 2nd episode where Mike Tyson joins DX, and it also has the epic return of The Undertaker. I guess I'll start off. Mine, if I had to go back and look them all over, I think I'd have to go with the April 6th, 1998 episode of Raw. It's the week after McMahon had Austin arrested, and we're really starting to sink our teeth into this Vince Stone Cold feud, and Stone Cold comes out in a suit. It looks like he's reformed, but it's a swerve as he nut checks Vince, snaps a photo of McMahon bent over holding his balls. Also, in that episode, DX pissed on the DOA Titan motorcycle. So I thought that was a great episode. Joe, what are your feelings?
Hopefully somebody will puke on them soon. Excellent choices by both of you. Chris Uncle Ahmed with his, what'd you say, March 2nd? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Probably the best swerve of the year with Mike Tyson joining DX. April episodes of Raw are just fire.
They are.
Crazy. It's after WrestleMania. It's the beginning of a new era. But to get into that new era, they had to work their way there. So I went with the January 19th episode of 1998, which was the week that Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mike Tyson had their little pull apart in the ring.
That was a great one too.
I think that is really one of the most classic, iconic moments in Raw history. It was just a classic episode as well, with that story kicking off to take us to the road to WrestleMania and Vince McMahon screaming, "You ruined it, damn it," to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah, so really great episode and great moment.
I agree. Thanks for the question, Chris, and thanks for listening. I just got to close out Netscape Navigator here.
Goodbye.
Off we go.
Off we go. This episode of Raw was recorded live on June 1st, 1998 in Chicago, Illinois, and it features Michael Cole, Jim Ross, Jerry the King Lawler, Vince McMahon, and Stone Cold Steve Austin on commentary. Sir.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
A Vince McMahon voiceover starts things off. They show us some still shots from Over the Edge main event, Vince telling us that he called the match fair. However, in a sheer act of incompetence, Dude Love took out Mr. McMahon with a chair shot to the head. Then, in one of the most selfish, heartless, and cruel acts in WWF history, Austin took McMahon's lifeless hand and covered himself to victory. Steve won the match, but will forever be stained with the label as the most undeserving and cold-hearted champion of all time. I thought that was a great lead-in by Mr. McMahon.
Yeah, the narration of his own story was pretty classic there. That was nice.
It was. We then cut to inside the arena where Dude Love is sitting on a folding chair in the middle of the ring, much like he did a couple months ago when he started off his corporate dude heel run against Austin. He's sporting a big shiner under one of his eyes. Mick says he lost his teeth, lost the match, and he'll come right out and say it. Stone Cold Steve Austin kicked his ass last night. Love then asked Mr. McMahon to come down to the ring so Dude could offer Vince an apology for his failure in defeating the Rattlesnake. Mr. McMahon, with a disgusted look on his face, comes down and calls Mick a failure in the ring and in life. Vince then tells the Dude to get down on his knees if he's truly sorry. But Love says his children are watching at home and he will not let Mr. McMahon embarrass him on national television. Mick then confesses that wrapping the chair around Vince's head last night, deep down it felt really good. Mr. McMahon, with a smart-ass look on his face, turns to Mick and says, "Dude, why don't you do it again? Go ahead, hit me with the chair. Come on, dude, hit me with the chair," screaming in Dude's face. But think about your kid's college education, the new house that you just moved into with a 20-year mortgage. 20 years. Vince McMahon was beautiful here. This was just classic McMahon. Vince then tells the defeated Dude that his services will no longer be required in the WWF. McMahon starts dancing around Foley as Mick sits in the middle of the ring moping. This was Mr. McMahon at his best, just so fucking hateable. We didn't get the iconic "you're fired" out of him, but he essentially fired him here, and this was the first "you're fired" segment, even though we didn't get those words. Great shit. I loved everything about this. Joe, what did you think?
Yeah, really good start to this show. Immediate fallout from the pay-per-view with Mick Foley, Dude Love in here, and quick turnaround for Dude Love. He's been acting heel for the past month or so. You see how quickly it can turn for a guy like Dude Love. We mentioned a few weeks ago, maybe longer, that they had too many heels and they're trying to build baby faces. Well, this is an easy way to do it. You have them come out here and face Mr. McMahon. So now we have a little bit more than just Stone Cold Steve Austin that has a problem with Mr. McMahon. And it works for me, brother, because it's Mick Foley. So it's going to work, and it's good to see.
And he already has a built-in relationship right now with Vince, so this story flows naturally.
Yeah. And I have a feeling that this is just the very beginning of that story between Mick Foley and Mr. McMahon. So really exciting stuff, exciting way to start off this show. Now we have another person, not only our hero, Stone Cold Steve Austin, but now we have Mick Foley that has a problem with Mr. McMahon. So that's great to see.
Couldn't agree more. And that takes us into our first match of the night. Darren Drozdoff and LOD 2000 Road Warrior Animal and Road Warrior Hawk versus the Disciples of Apocalypse, 8-Ball Chains and Skull in a Chicago street fight match. Ends in no contest in 4 minutes. Before the match got started, Kevin "Oh My God Kelly" interviews Draws, aka Puke, who spits up a little bit on Kelly's shoes before Hawk and Animal give us a short promo while Draws continues to hack up chunks on Kelly. Chains then rides his shitmobile down the access ramp to the arena to get the street fight started. This was not very good. There was a bunch of clearly planted garbage sitting around. This is a match nobody asked for. Absolutely nobody. There's nothing really to pay attention here. It was just 6 people throwing garbage at each other. At one point, though, Animal started beating 8-Ball with a metal pipe, and it looked like it hurt. I don't think that pipe was gimmicked at all, and he just kept on smacking 8-Ball in the shoulder, and it started to bend. You could tell that one kind of hurt. But then the Undertaker, out of nowhere, in black sweatpants and a black sweatshirt, walked down the ramp and takes out everyone. And that's how things end. As a no contest, the Undertaker the Merciful stops our suffering. Joe, what were your thoughts on this fantastic Chicago street fight?
Oh, man. A Chicago street fight that lasted 4 minutes, you said?
Yeah, 4 minutes even.
Yeah, that's not going to get anybody excited. However, the Undertaker showing up here in sweats and screaming, "Where's McMahon?" This is the first time we've seen Undertaker out of character here.
Yeah, he's quasi badass.
Yeah,
American badass.
Yeah,
here.
He's like a Mark Calloway / Undertaker here, and doesn't look like the Undertaker. He looks like a guy that's completely out of character. So this was interesting to see. I don't remember this at all. So that was obviously the street fight was a setup for
Right.
The Undertaker, so it was a useless match.
But why even build it up?
Yeah.
This street fight.
Yeah. But I did enjoy that nice little surprise of Undertaker walking down that ramp and attacking those guys and then charging into the back of the building.
Not to mention you saved us from having to finish that
Yeah.
terrible match. And Joe, as you mentioned, we cut back from break and The Undertaker's still not happy as he marches around backstage demanding to know where Vince is at. We then cut to the ring for our next match. Val Venis defeats Papi Chulo in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. As Val makes his way down to the ring, the camera focuses on a bunch of very thirsty ladies eyeing up the big Valboski. Then, Joe, you had to be happy. Val grabs the mic and gives us the familiar, "Hello, ladies." Followed by, "No, I'm not happy to see ya. That is a gun in my pocket. And believe you me, this gun shoots no blanks." He then ends the monologue with the Val Venis groan and moan before attacking Papi Chulo in the corner. Papi never really gets going in this match. Val kicks the shit out of him from the start. Papi Chulo kind of reminded me of a less muscular Glenn Danzig. He had on the leather pants, pale skin, and the long, straight black hair. Anyway, this was a true jobber match. Commentary started to veer off into other subjects almost immediately. Michael Cole did give us a nice tidbit, though. I don't really know much Spanish, so this was a help for me. He informed us that Papi Chulo means pimp daddy in Spanish, and then said, "How about that? We've got Val Venis and Pimp Daddy in the ring together at the same time. This isn't good guys versus bad guys."
Gotta light up a blunt for that Pimp Daddy.
That's all I could think of when they were calling him Pimp Daddy. I was like, well, we're going to be getting the Godfather real soon.
Yep.
Even in the bracket, they showed us the King of the Ring bracket. He was listed in there as the Godfather now. They do focus back on the ring just for Papi to mount a very short rally on Venis before Venis takes control back with a vicious-looking clothesline. Val then lands his money shot finisher, gyrates his hips a few times before picking up the expected win over jobby Papi Chulo. I thought this was another decent build-up match for Val. This was a by-the-books jobber squash match for sure, but twice in a row now I thought Val Venis rose to the occasion. Joe?
Unfortunately, now this is the first two Val Venis matches that Bartlett misses out on. So that's
He's
sad.
missed both.
You mentioned The Godfather, and looking back and watching characters like The Godfather and Val Venis, they're just fun. They're just fun to watch because they're so ridiculous.
That's the whole point. They're here.
Yeah.
Be fun.
And Val Venis, his music got a big pop from the Chicago crowd.
Yeah.
They love when he does all of his perverted gyrating in the ring. Like they pop for it. So he's definitely getting over with this ridiculous gimmick. And yeah, against Pimp Daddy here, I'm surprised Pimp Daddy didn't get the Jobber of the Week treatment this week. Like you said, this is a textbook jobber match. There was a sign in the crowd that said, "Sonny wants a money shot," that I loved seeing. And this was just another good showing from Val Venis. I think that these first couple matches that he's had have been pretty good. Like, he's a pretty athletic guy. I don't really remember him as a wrestler very much. I mostly remember just his disgusting promos and those kind of things. But yeah, he's a pretty decent wrestler.
And he's definitely got the look. He's a big, tall guy. He's muscular, and he's doing a good job in there with what he's been given so far.
He's really like full-blown into the gimmick, kind of like what we saw with Goldust when he debuted a few years ago. It's like you go all out with it, and he's doing it.
Yeah. After that, The Undertaker came out to the ring, still in his black sweatsuit. Unfortunately, they went to break right as he got into the ring, and we come back, and The Undertaker's already mid-sentence. From the context, I gather he was saying that the reason he is here and that he's so pissed off at Vince, and that's where we pick up, so pissed off at Vince, and that's where we start mid-sentence. Taker then tells us a little story beginning some 10 years ago. When he came to the WWF, Vince McMahon was known as someone that would give someone an opportunity even if they were a little different. And Vince did just that. He let The Undertaker be himself in the WWF. From then on, Phenom was happy to be Vince's Dragon Slayer, who would destroy the big bad giants coming in to threaten Vince's kingdom, making sure to protect McMahon's hand-picked champions, knowing that in the end, he would get his chance. And he did, and he reminded us that he is also a two-time world champion himself. This all started to veer off into sounding like he was setting up a D&D game with all these dragons and kingdom talk. Then The Undertaker starts whining a little bit, saying that he didn't get to stay champ long because Vince didn't like someone like The Undertaker representing the WWF. He then blames Vince for allowing Paul Bearer and Kane a platform to drag his family's tragedy out in front of everyone, and all for what? The ratings. And we were praising Foley was getting involved here, but now it seems like everyone's blaming Vince for everything. And we're even bringing Taker to break kayfabe to do it, because he's out of character in the way he's dressed and the fact that he's whining. He's bitching and whining about Vince having control over his career. But The Undertaker has had enough, and he demands a title shot. That takes Mr. McMahon to come out to a booing crowd. He doesn't look very happy as he snatches the microphone off of Taker, says, "After all I've done for you, you choke slam me to hell last week. You hover over me like a giant vulture last night. Well, you want my attention, you've got it. Yes, you've been loyal over the years, but what have you done for me lately?" That was just the way JR reacted to it, like, oh God, just so vile. Vince then asks if Paul Bearer was telling the truth when he called Taker's mom a whore.
Jeez.
However, despite all that, he will give Undertaker an opportunity to be the number one contender if he could win his match tonight. McMahon then reveals his opponent is none other than his brother, Kane. How do you feel about another person blaming Vince for all their problems here?
Well, I feel pretty good about it. I mean, we are stacking the deck now against Mr. McMahon. We were stacking it against Stone Cold Steve Austin, and now we're evening things out here. It's really weird to see The Undertaker basically out of character this early on in his career, and story time with Undertaker here. Yeah, it was a little strange. I did pop when he said I never lost my smile during that speech. And Vince is playing a great character tonight because he got taken out with a chair last night, 24 hours ago. He's really playing up the enough is enough boss attitude tonight. So it's really great. And he's just getting really brave and arrogant and pompous and cocky in front of these guys. Where last night, Vince was scared of Undertaker. He was scared to death of him. And tonight, he's getting up in his face. So
he's throwing his weight around tonight.
Yeah, it's a great representation of how someone can quickly change after events 24 hours ago. And it's another great example of Vince McMahon just being an incredibly good on-screen character.
I couldn't agree more. Vince tonight, he deserves an Oscar.
Yeah.
Then we have the JVC Kaboom of the week. It is from Over the Edge when The Undertaker put Pat Patterson through the announcer's table with a choke slam. It was great to see it again, and they show it to us like 3 or 4 different times in slow motion. That was fun to watch. We then move on to what looks like a Sable photo shoot, but then the Road Dogg, Assman, and X-Pac burst through the doors and drench everyone with some Super Soaker water guns. And that's it. It turns out this is just a commercial for Super Soakers, and they show off the new CPS 1000. I know I wanted that as a kid. I had one of the smaller ones. I think the 100 is what I had, but this 1000, that was like the BFG of water guns back then.
They were pretty awesome water guns. They were pretty powerful.
No, they were. Do you have any thoughts about the Kaboom or the commercial?
Well, with Kaboom, like I said last week, I had an out-of-body experience when Pat Patterson and Jerry Briscoe were getting choke-slammed through the tables. So I loved the Kaboom of the week. They couldn't have picked anything better than that. And Sable getting sprayed down and this pencil neck geek photographer being extremely creepy and perverted during his little photo session. I guess it's a shame that Sable was not wearing a white t-shirt. I guess I'll keep the perverted behavior going.
Keep it going
for this man. Yeah.
And that Sable commercial is a perfect setup for our next match. Marc Mero defeats Steve Blackman in the first King of the Ring qualifying match in 2 minutes and 51 seconds. Commentary recaps Sable and Marc Mero's match from Over the Edge and how Sable is supposedly out of the WWF now. But if that were true, would we debut a brand new commercial starring her for Super Soakers
just 2 minutes
right
ago
before the match? Yeah, that seems a bit odd, but Mark gets on the mic and he says Sable is back at home barefoot in the kitchen where she belongs. That gets a good reaction out of the crowd. Then he introduces his new manager, Jacqueline, who looks great. She looks like a real wrestler. She's got some big old pipe bombs on her there. She looks like the real deal. And I know Bartlett is going to be devastated he wasn't here to announce her debut, but that's what you get for being an 18%er.
Yep.
The match got started and Blackman and Mero, I thought, looked pretty decent together. I think Blackman looked better than he has the last few times we saw him, and maybe that's just because this match was so short and it helped things out, because less than 3 minutes into it, Jacqueline distracts the ref and Blackman, allowing Mark to land his signature low blow. The Marvelous One looks to be going to set up the TKO, but no. Instead, he goes to the top rope and lands the Mero Salt, which I was not happy to see. He needs to keep that one tucked away in his pocket. That's enough to pick up the victory over Blackman, who had a decent push in a winning streak not too long ago, but now he's losing in under 3 minutes to someone whose career is already over. But it was very cool to see Jacqueline's debut. So, Joe, what were your thoughts on this, the first King of the Ring qualifying match?
Yeah, I'm glad you finished with that, because there are some stakes on this match. It's a King of the Ring qualifier, so it's a good match because it actually has meaning to it.
Yeah.
So that was nice to see. And Jacqueline, if anybody has been watching WCW during this time, she was there for a few months and just really great on WCW. She was getting in there fighting with the guys, even more so than Chyna has been. Just really believable, because she has a great look. She has sex appeal. She has a ton of charisma.
She's the full package.
Yeah. Just her entering the ring tonight, you can just see the charisma with her. So really great to see her. And she's going to be a big distraction for people when she's there with Marc Mero. And that's going to be exciting to watch. I think most of us remember when we think of Sable during this time, we remember the feud that she has with Jackie. So it's probably going to be a long-running feud that we'll probably get sick of at some point, but I am looking forward to something new, and seeing Jackie here now is something new and exciting. So definitely looking forward to it.
I totally agree. From there, we go to Stone Cold, who was a guest on Mancow's Morning Madhouse. Man, that's a name I haven't heard forever.
Yeah.
I don't remember actually ever listening to his show, but Joe, I know you were a big Howard Stern guy, and this was one of Howard's big rivalries, right? This is the guy that Howard made fun of his dying dad, isn't it?
I don't remember if it was him or not. I know, but he was a big rival. Him and Imus were like the big rivals for Howard, yeah.
This was a great promotion for the WWF and for building up Stone Cold as that star known even outside of the wrestling ring. Mr. McMahon even called in to help pump up the rivalry. Austin says that he wants to make his own holiday, Punch Your Boss in the Mouth Day. All around, it looked like everybody had a good time doing this, and I'm sure, like I said, they got a bit of a pop out of that, because I remember that Mancow had a pretty big audience.
Yeah.
We move on to another Edge video. It's pretty similar to the other Edge videos we've seen, so not too much to talk about there. But Joe, do you have anything to add about Mancow's Morning Madhouse with Steve Austin or the 20th Edge teaser video?
The radio show looked extremely entertaining. They just showed us that short clip, and the fact that Vince called in to pump that up a little bit, that was really cool to hear. So it had to be extremely entertaining during that time period. And the Edge video that we get this time, I noticed this time that this one sort of hints that Edge is maybe a vampire gimmick for the first time, because there's like a short clip there where it looks like he has fangs for teeth for like a quick second.
Nice catch. I didn't see that.
Yeah, maybe I'm just seeing things, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened there. And also, I read in the news that Edge had a dark match on this June 1st episode, and also Gangrel had a dark match on this same episode. So we got to be getting close.
After that, we come back to the ring where Jerry the King Lawler is joining commentary for the War Zone, and he assures us and JR that he is not who broke up the Spice Girls. So there's Joe's quote from earlier.
Yeah, just squash that rumor right away.
Yeah. That kicks off our next match. The Nation, D'Lo Brown, Owen Hart, and The Rock with Kama Mustafa and Mark Henry defeat by DQ D-Generation X, Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, and Triple H with Chyna and X-Pac in a 6-man elimination tag match in 10 minutes and 38 seconds. DX does their suck it routine, this time with Ass Man holding a big foam DX prop in front of Try's crotch. I assume that must be some new merch that's for sale at the souvenir tables. Before the action can get started, though, the commish sends all non-participating members of both groups back to the locker room.
They're going to get out and they're going to stay out for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Everyone listens to that, especially when you enforce it.
Yeah.
D'Lo Brown and Triple H are the first two in the ring, and we pick off where we left off last night.
Yeah.
These two teams, they look great together. Unfortunately, somebody does have to be eliminated first, and that somebody is Wrasslin Raw's favorite, D'Lo Brown. Mr. Ass picks up a pinfall over D'Lo with an awesome-looking pile driver. JR called The Rock a blue chipper, so that got a smile out of me. And maybe this is a little too soon to have this match right after we just had a 3-on-3 last night between these two, but I still found it highly entertaining. The Rock eliminated Road Dogg with the Rock Bottom. JR informs us the Rock Bottom is called a Uranagi in some circles. Owen sends Ass Man packing after Mr. Ass misses a splash, and Owen's able to capitalize off of Mr. Ass smacking his head off the corner. Owen hits his Enziguri, picks up a pinfall, leaving just Triple H against Owen and the Rock. Chyna then comes down to the ring with zero consequences. Nobody stops her. Nobody does anything.
Commissioner Slaughter remains useless.
Neutered.
Yeah.
I thought Hunter did a great job selling for both Rock and Owen as they both take turns beating on him until Helmsley was able to counter the Rock Bottom into a pedigree and make this a one-on-one match against Owen. And just when it looked like Owen was going to pick up another victory over Triple H, an extremely quick bone-healing Ken Shamrock runs in and attacks Owen and causes a DQ win for the Nation. It looks like Ken has topped off his tank as he flexes for the crowd before the rest of the Nation come in and overwhelm Shamrock. But then Dan the Beast Severn comes in and rescues Shamrock before those two eye each other up. Lastly, Hunter shoves Ken for interrupting his match, which causes Shamrock to snap on him. Pretty entertaining match, really, all around. It ended in shenanigans, but I do like that Shamrock is back, and I look forward to whoever he's going to start a program with, be it Owen, Dan, Triple H, take your pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. Going into this, I thought, oh, we're getting this again. We just had to pay for this like 24 hours ago, but this was really good. This was really entertaining. The fact that it was an elimination match was cool because that left 2-on-1 with Triple H outnumbered here, which is interesting. It's good storytelling. It's really putting Triple H over as a babyface here. And you mentioned it, Billy Gunn is another guy who gives an excellent pile driver, just really great looking. Of course, Chyna has no business being down here, obviously, but
but no one cares.
Yeah, she came down and played a part, which was cool. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought it had just good storytelling behind it, with Triple H kind of being outnumbered here as the babyface. And then, yeah, Ken Shamrock, he comes in, which it's nice to see him because he's the thumbnail on the pay-per-view and was not on that show, but he's back. As you mentioned, he's running on 93 octane. It appears.
Blue Lightning or whatever that race fuel.
Yeah. Dan Severn coming out here to save him, I thought that was a little weak. I just didn't think it came off great. Probably because Dan Severn just, I don't know, he just doesn't really have...
Doesn't have any charisma.
Yeah, he just doesn't have that charisma for me personally.
Now, Bartlett, the
18%er,
he'd be popping himself all over the place if he was here tonight.
And then now you have Ken Shamrock and Hunter Hearst Helmsley going at it, which is nice to see because, okay, maybe we can get away from this Triple H and Owen thing. That was nice. Maybe we're going to do something different with these guys. Even though I do like this DX Nation feud right now, it'll give us more with Ken Shamrock going after Helmsley. So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of options for them as a creative staff with what they can do with all of this. You've got Severn and Shamrock kind of eyeing each other up, and then you've got Shamrock and Helmsley, and then you still have DX versus the Nation. So there's a lot to work with here.
You also got Shamrock and Owen. Remember, Owen bit his ear off, which it would look like it was reattached here. And I'm glad they've dropped the ear-biting thing that Owen did for like 3 weeks straight. They haven't really brought that back up. And it's also amazing how they were able to completely change our idea of Owen versus Triple H. I mean, we would still like to see it move on, but the last 2 matches have been fantastic.
Yeah, Owen joining the Nation has been a nice boost for him, I think.
Yeah, it really freshened up his character.
Yeah.
Before we head to break, we see the Undertaker backstage hunched over somewhere, looking like he just got done drinking from a garden hose that was tied up by the nearby wall. We then come back from break, and Vince McMahon is in the locker room talking and shaking hands with Paul Bearer and Kane. Yes, Kane slowly shook Mr. McMahon's hand. He's getting more and more lifelike all the time. He now shakes hands like regular people. Anything you wanted to add to this pre or post segment scenes we got?
Like you said, it's showing a human side to Kane here, and also just showing what a scumbag Mr. McMahon is. So a win on both sides there.
Yeah. That takes us to our next match. Jeff Jarrett with Southern Justice and Tennessee Lee defeats Faarooq in a King of the Ring qualifying match in 3 minutes and 21 seconds. Tennessee Lee berates the Chicago crowd and the WWF office for not knowing how to treat a Southern gentleman. So to teach us, Lee introduces us to Southern Justice, a cleaned up Henry and Phineas Godwin. This probably isn't going to work, but they did need to do something to freshen them up, give them a fresh coat of paint. So
yeah,
I guess it's something.
Yeah.
As Faarooq was introduced, sadly, I was thinking about what you said last week. The crowd is just completely indifferent towards Faarooq, and that's a bad place to be as a wrestler.
Yeah.
Jarrett and Faarooq, I thought, though, looked pretty strong together. Both are skilled mid-card workers at this point, and I thought their styles meshed fairly well. Just wish we could have saw a little bit more of them. This is another very short qualifying match, and both qualifying matches ended so far with distractions. Double J picks up this win after Southern Justice distracts the ref, allowing Jeff to nail Faarooq in the head with Tennessee Lee's belt buckle. So Double J, with Tennessee Lee's guidance, continues his winning streak. Joe, how did you feel about this one?
It's so short, and you had the interference, the belt buckle to the dome, which was fine, but yeah, it was so short. There wasn't really much to talk about here, and you have this new cleaned up Godwins, the Southern Justice. I barely remember this. I barely remember them being this cleaned up team, and yeah, like you said, it's probably not going to work, and you're probably right, but I guess we'll see what happens over these next few weeks. I'm not sure how long they went with this Southern Justice gimmick, so we're going to find out.
Henry, the way they had his hair and goatee, he reminded me of that, what was that comedy, Eastbound and Down?
Oh, yeah, Kenny Powers.
Kenny Powers. He looked like Kenny Powers coming out of there.
A little bit, yeah.
After the match, we saw a video putting over Vince for his charitable donations.
I thought this was a joke at first.
Wasn't
it? It's not. It was definitely a serious video.
It was just a bunch of headshots of Vince talking about what a great guy he is. They just keep cutting to more headshots of Vince smiling.
Charitable businessman, a bunch of pictures of him with Linda at these charity events. I thought it was going to be a joke, but I'm pretty sure it was a serious video, which was very odd.
I thought it was just something to make us hate him even more.
I guess it is. It's very well done because it has me fooled. Like, are they going to keep doing this every week? That's what I'm wondering. But as I see it this week, I'm thinking this looks like it's serious and not a joke.
Well, that hilarious video takes us into our next match. Taka Michinoku with Bradshaw defeats Sho Funaki with Dick Togo Tio and Yamaguchi-san to retain the WWF Light Heavyweight Championship in 3 minutes and 8 seconds. Beginning of this, I thought, whoa, what the fuck? A Light Heavyweight Championship match? I didn't know those still existed. We immediately start off with Taka hitting one of his spots, the very familiar springboard crossbody onto Funaki, waiting to catch him on the outside.
Never see that.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Once they get back in the ring, Funaki lands a few butt bounces. I don't know what else to call them. He sends Taka off the ropes and then jumps and twists in midair and smacks Taka with his ass.
Ass to the face.
Yeah, very unique and devastating move, I'm sure. In between the spots in the ring, we see Al Snow. He's dressed in a very over-the-top, stereotypical Japanese outfit and hat, the straw, pointy hat look. He's posing as a Japanese photographer, and Taka does land the Michinoku driver on Funaki for the win, but no one in the crowd cares. They are booing security for removing Al Snow. Literally, as the ref is counting and declaring Taka the winner, there's more eyes from the audience on Al Snow than the title match. That's not good. Joe?
Well, Jerry the King Lawler says that Taka's career is fading quicker than that new Godzilla movie, and he is absolutely correct. I really don't care about Taka matches, and neither do these live crowds. It's basically the same thing every time, and it becomes even more so when he has the same opponent over and over again. Before it was Brian Christopher, and now it's all these Kaientai guys. So yeah, I'm fading.
Yeah, I hear you. JR then asks Paul Bear, who's backstage, how confident he is that his son could defeat his brother, The Undertaker, tonight. Paul says Kane has defeated The Undertaker before, and this time, with a chance at the gold on the line, he'll do it again, but has he?
Did he? I don't think so.
Has the Kane ever beat Undertaker? I'm pretty sure he hasn't. He's caused other people to beat The Undertaker, but I'm pretty sure Kane has never won a one-on-one match against The Undertaker, so.
Well, he did beat Vader.
Yes.
And speaking of Vader, why don't you hit us with a little bit of a soundbite?
You mean
Maybe Vader time's over. I'm nothing but a big piece of shit. Big fat piece of shit.
Yeah, 2-0 against that guy.
He is.
0-2, I think, against Undertaker, right?
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever beat him. We then cut to Al Snow out in the parking lot, who's arguing with Head about Head liking Egg Foo Young now.
Jeez.
That's pretty much it. As we go to ringside to see Vince McMahon joining us on commentary for our next match. Mark Henry defeats Terry Funk in a King of the Ring qualifying match in 4 minutes and 53 seconds. As Terry made his way down to the ring, McMahon says, now there's the real hardcore king, not Mick Foley. Mick Foley is history in the WWF. And just last week, we were asking why hasn't Mark Henry been in the ring very much, and so it was good to see him tonight here in singles action. This is almost a wrestling school match, though, isn't it? Terry Funk is one of the main guys that's been working and training Mark, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he has. And I guess we have to remember, too, that Mark Henry did have didn't he have a broken leg or something? He had a pretty serious injury. Yeah, and that might be why he's been out of action for a while, just healing up still.
Henry's power is amazing, though. He looks like a legitimate monster up against Funk, and he caught Terry at one point mid-move and then slams him into the ring post, and Funk could only gain the advantage in this match after smacking Mark in the head with a chair right in front of the ref, Tim White, who just lets it go without even a warning.
Well, it's the hardcore legend.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Terry then takes a pretty nasty bump, flipping off the top rope and smacking his thigh and hip off the metal crowd barrier. That looked like it hurt like hell. I did love when JR said Terry Funk is middle-aged and crazy, and the King said, middle-aged? He's 53. How many 106-year-olds do you have? Henry then lands a pretty poor-looking powerbomb before landing a big splash to pick up the victory and move on in the King of the Ring tournament. I thought a serviceable match. Mark clearly still has to work out some things, especially that powerbomb, but he's getting better and better in there, and this is the first King of the Ring match tonight that had a clean finish, so I was happy to see that. What do you think?
Yeah, it was clean, even though that chair shot happened right in front of the...
Well, that didn't cause anything with the ending.
You basically said it. You could tell Terry Funk was walking Mark Henry through this match. You have to give Mark Henry some credit. He worked with that hardcore style. It takes a chair right to the dome, unprotected, still wins the match, even after taking that chair shot. That says a lot because chair shots to the head usually put a guy out. Yeah. But Mark Henry still won this match, so that says something. He is a force to be reckoned with. Even though he's not a very good technical, skilled wrestler right now, he's still entertaining to watch, in my opinion.
And let's be honest, he's not there to be a technical wrestler. He's there to use his raw strength to beat people.
Right.
He looks, like I said, like a monster. He looks like a legitimate monster. Like Vader was trying to be when he came into the WWF.
Yes, and now we know that he's just nothing but a fat piece of shit.
Yeah. The glass breaks and Mr. McMahon flips the fuck out. What the hell is he doing here? He's got no business being here.
He's making sure he's hitting all of his stupid sayings on commentary tonight.
Yeah. Steve then takes a seat next to JR, and we've got a 4-man booth now. And Vince's face was beautiful here.
Just pouting.
Yeah, pouting like a fucking baby as Austin crashed his party. And this little scene here sets us up for our last match of the night. Kane with Paul Bearer defeats The Undertaker in a #1 contendership match in 6 minutes and 25 seconds. The two brothers start off exchanging big blows with each other. Austin is in The Undertaker's corner, and McMahon is obviously pulling for Kane. It didn't take long before The Undertaker made his way outside the ring and punches Paul Bearer in his beautiful face, and Stone Cold says, "You fat piece of garbage, take that." The Undertaker then gets back in the ring, but Kane nails him with a chokeslam. A few minutes later, Undertaker hits Kane with a chokeslam of his own, and I thought both of these guys were doing a pretty good job giving us a good monster-on-monster match, which isn't an easy thing to pull off. It's usually could be boring and slow. The Undertaker pulled off a pretty good-looking side Russian leg sweep. I thought Bret Hart was in there for a moment. Yeah. That's not a move Taker pull off very often. But after the Undertaker hits a tombstone, the ref is unconscious and is not able to count the pinfall. Cue Mankind, who makes his way to the ring and puts the mandible claw on the Undertaker. They show Vince smiling, saying, "I don't know where he came from. I fired him." And that distraction is enough for Kane to land a tombstone on the Undertaker just as the referee woke up, and he scores a victory to become the #1 contender to face Stone Cold at King of the Ring. Kane then stands in front of Austin and makes the belt motion across his waist. Again, more signs of life from Kane, as this audience, every week they're warming up to him more and more, so they're making him more and more a real person. After the match, Mankind and The Undertaker take it to each other, setting up a possible match between them at King of the Ring. JR even says that they may need to settle this in hell. You don't say, JR. As we fade to black, Vince says maybe he's not going to fire Mick Foley after all. Joe, how did you feel about the way things ended tonight?
Well, some nice stuff from Undertaker in this match. You mentioned that side Russian leg sweep. And also when he flipped over the ropes so gracefully to get a piece of Paul Bearer, that was a thing of beauty. Like he did like a backwards flip and landed on his feet and then just started beating on Paul Bearer, which was really cool to see.
Perfect timing.
Perfect, absolutely perfect timing and placement. Vince and Steve Austin on commentary was fairly entertaining as well. They were just jawing at each other the whole time, and Vince was cracking me up when he was cheering on Kane. He was like a cheerleader for Kane. I thought that was pretty funny. And yeah, nice surprise here, seeing Mankind come out here. I guess half Mankind. He was not in the full Mankind gear, but most of it. We know what's going to happen. We have the ability to know what's going to happen at the next pay-per-view. This is something, again, it's something different, although it's something we've seen before, as The Undertaker and Mankind brawling with each other. I have no problem revisiting that. Those were some really good matches and really good stories. So we'll get some of that. And then again, we still have this Undertaker having issue with Vince. He wants a shot at the title, which is currently Steve Austin. And then you also have Kane in there, who is, like you said, he's showing more signs of being a human. It's definitely like they're turning a page with Kane right now, that they're going to take him in a little bit of a different direction. So all of this is just, they're just setting things up. I mentioned it earlier too with DX and the Nation. Like there's just so many ways they can go with these characters and stories, and it's really exciting to see.
This is a case of, in my opinion, knowing what's going to happen in the future, helping. Knowing that at King of the Ring, we're going to have this Hell in the Cell match with Taker and Mankind. It's like, I've now have this anticipation to see what the buildup is going to be, because I already know the payoff is great.
Yeah.
So now I get to watch the buildup that I don't really remember. So that's really awesome to go back and revisit.
Yeah. And this is basically where it starts.
Yeah. This is it right here.
They didn't really spend a lot of time on it because the pay-per-view is going to be in probably, 4 weeks or so?
Yeah. It would just be a few week build up to it. Yeah. Before we wrap things up, I just wanted to mention that there was a dark match that followed this Undertaker-Kane match, and it was Stone Cold Steve Austin defeating The Rock to retain the WWF Championship. So hell of a treat for the live crowd to close things out. And that brings us to highlights and lowlights. Joe, what do you have for us?
Well, for my highlight, it's going to be something I thought was a little surprising, and that was the DX versus Nation match. I wasn't feeling good going into it because we just saw it 24 hours ago, but I thought it was very entertaining and very good storytelling. And for my low light, this was a damn near perfect episode, but DOA was in there to kick things off, so that's my low light.
Good picks there for sure. My highlight, I'm just giving the Vince McMahon in this one. Just every segment he was involved in, he had the perfect face, the perfect reaction to Mick Foley, The Undertaker, his interaction with Stone Cold here at the end. I just thought he really stole the show tonight in his acting chops here. So I'm giving Vince McMahon the highlight. And my low light is the same as you, that complete fucking mess that happened outside with LOD and DOA, the Chicago street fight. That was definitely my low light. Next up on the docket here, Joe, do you have any contemporary wrestling news on or around June 1st, 1998 for us?
We do. Reporting from the Wrestling Observer. So starting off with a little bit of sad news today. The Junkyard Dog, born Sylvester Ritter, passed away at the young age of 45 on June 2nd.
That seems even younger now, being 42.
Yeah.
When you're a kid and you hear that, you're like, oh, whatever, 45, that's ancient.
Yeah. Well, and in this business, a lot of times A lot of guys do pass away at a young age, usually due to drugs and other things like that. But JYD, he was killed in a highway accident in Mississippi. Just a single car accident. It was believed that he fell asleep while driving. So yeah, sad news tonight. Junkyard Dog, though, he was known as one of the biggest drawing cards in the game between 1980 and 1986, mostly for Mid-South wrestling. So I'm sure some of our older listeners down south definitely remember Junkyard Dog.
But he did have a pretty good run in the WWF, too. I remember when I was a little kid. He was one of the few action figures I had. The 12-inch tall rubber ones.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, and you always hear stories from guys like Jim Cornette and all those guys that talk about just how incredibly popular he was down south when he was there. So, sad news there. Another piece of news here with WCW. They are definitely feeling the heat of WWF, and word is that there was a special meeting that took place at Hulk Hogan's home to discuss the Bash at the Beach pay-per-view taking place in July. It is believed that Dennis Rodman will be back and that they will be recruiting another celebrity to team up with Diamond Dallas Page, and we're going to find out later that that's going to be Karl Malone. That's when they had their
Karl Malone
little feud, with Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman. So WCW making one last push before shit just falls apart. So
yeah,
enjoy that while it lasts.
Before the wheels fall off there.
Yeah. And speaking of Monday Night Wars, as far as the ratings go, Monday Night Raw had its biggest win tonight in 2 years on this episode. They drew a 4.35 rating compared to Nitro's 3.72. So big win for Raw. They've been on a roll lately with their ratings wins. And last piece of news here, Dave Meltzer is predicting that Ken Shamrock appears to be the favorite to win this year's King of the Ring tournament. We will see how that shakes out. And that is all.
Thank you, Joe. And that's a wrap. Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed it, our podcast is available at all of the popular podcast platforms. You can also join us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look up Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. If you'd like to help us out, give us a 5-star review and leave us a comment. And tell your friends to tune in to the most undeserving Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airways. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, Bartlett will still be on his secret mission, but me and Joe will bring you the June 8th, 1998 episode of Monday Night Raw with matches featuring Chains, Vader.
Maybe Vader time's over. I'm nothing but a big piece of shit. A big fat piece of shit.
And many more. So, for Joe and Jason, I'm Ryan, and you've been listening to Wrasslin Raw.